Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi, older sister and fantasy lore nerd.
And I'm Nicole, younger sister and romantic at heart.
And today is our last episode, deep diving Spark of the Everflame by Penn, where we are covering chapters 30 through 32 and, of course, the epilogue. But before we begin this episode 5, please listen closely to our spoiler warning. In this episode, we are talking about the end of Spark of the Everflame, which means spoilers for Spark, as well as all 3 released books in the Kindred's Curse saga, including Glow and Heat of the Everflame as well.
The epilogue alone could be an entire episode of Fantasy Fangirls with how much foreshadowing there is. So if you don't know what Arley means when she goes into a glittering black cave, then please go finish the series, especially Heat of the Everflame. We will be here when you're done.
Next, we at Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
While we don't have Luther Corpois on the page today, we do get a family fight and things get dark. So please do be mindful of those little listening ears.
Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events. Nicole and I are hosting an Empyrean Trivia Night in Boulder, Colorado on July 10th. We will be featured guests at Enchanticon in St. Louis, Missouri, August 15th through 17th.
Then we will be at the Everflame Ball along with Penn for the first ever Kindred's Curse Saga Ball on August 30th in Castle Rock, Colorado. We will also be back at the Dragon Gauntlet in Boyne City, Michigan, September 12th through 13th.
Then Romantasy BookCon in Orlando, Florida, October 23rd through 25th, where we are interviewing Rebecca Yarros again at Disney World.
Check out our website or the links below for more information to all of these events.
Last thing before we jump into this final Spark of the Everflame episode, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and want more events, more content, more community, and just so much more all around, please check out our Fantasy Fan Club.
We have 3 membership tiers that you can join. Number 1, The Descended, which includes access to our Boppin' Discord, live Q&As from Lexi and I, book club, exclusive author interviews, community events like trivias, promo codes for live events, plus exclusive designs and 20% off all merch. That is for $6 a month. Or you can join the Royal Family, which includes everything from the Descended level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. Then we have the Crown's Council, which includes everything from the previous 2 tiers, plus behind the scenes content, a welcome gift, giveaways, private Discord channel, and your name shouted out on the podcast. That is for $25 a month.
Join the party at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. The link is also in the show notes. And really and truly, friends, thank you so much for supporting us as we've turned this podcast into our dream come true. It's all because of you.
And now it is time to become the Queen of Lumnos.
Yay! And our story really begins.
I know!
To kick off every episode, Nicole does us the honor of summarizing this stretch of chapters. So gather round as we consult with our royal advisors to discuss what happens in chapters 30 through 32 and the epilogue of Spark of the Everflame.
Chapter 30. After putting in her 2 weeks notice, effective immediately, DM heads to Henry's house and just stands there. But when she finally gets the courage to knock, 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 Henry waltzes up from behind her. Dude wasn't even home. And maybe that was for the best, because Henry is quite salty about DM lying, her choices to run away from the Guardians, and what is she wearing? Luther's shirt, that's what! But Henry does not know that yet. During their lovers' spat, Henry reveals that he did indeed know that that little girl from DM's test mission was poisoned on purpose. Get ready for quite the Henry hat today. He also informs DM that the Guardians are not happy and she should probably watch her back. Ominous, bro. And since he's just spilling all the tea, he might as well keep on pouring. Andre's been recalled to the army and he's already accepted a week ago. Chapter 31. It's a long walk home as DM contemplates everything, and I mean everything. She's jobless with no savings in this economy. The Guardians are out to get her. Taking down the Descended is harder than she expected, and to top it all off, Teller's dreams are screwed. Her father is marching off to war. Her mother is still missing, and Luther. I mean, what isn't there to think when it comes to that man? After arriving home, Diem is immediately interrogated by her father. Like, Molly Weasley would be proud of this interrogation. Not only is the commander upset that Diem stayed out all night at the palace, he's also upsetty spaghetti that his 110% absolutely mortal daughter ran into a burning building when she said that she was only going there to help, not risk her mortal life. Things are finally calming down when Diem mentions her mother's bargain with the palace, and well, it's safe to say that Arley wasn't keeping secrets only from Diem, and things only escalate from there. Slowly giving into the voice inside, Diem pushes and pushes and pushes her father to his limit with words intended to cut him down like his own blade, but ultimately that limit is reached and he kicks Diem out of the house. Chapter 32. Storming into the night, Diem finds herself burning up. Who's got the heat cranked up to 1,000 degrees? Teller tries to talk to Diem, but girl can't hear him over the voice inside her head. Yo, I'll tell you what you want, what you really want, daughter of the forgotten. Diem surrenders to the Spice Girls as she shoots a beam of light up through her palm straight into the sky. Last chance, Diem, are you positive you're not mortal? As fast as the tingling light came, they're gone. Diem looks up at a horrified Teller, who gives her the good news. Congratulations, Diem! You're the next contestant on The Price is Right! Just kidding. Diem, you are the new Queen of Lumnos. Epilogue. POV change! Adding another line to her rows of chalk counting the days, Arley Bellator has been sitting and waiting in a very remote location. After checking on her selected locations and each of her stockpiles, including the special surprises, girl is even keeping secrets in her head, Arley makes her way to the glittering black stone door. Creeping down the steps, she tosses a match only to find an old bloodstain. Filled with relief, Arley makes her way back up the stairs to a large black temple. And that's where the ground begins to rumble and one of the obelisk's flames goes completely out. Off in the distance across the sacred sea, Arley watches a beam of light shoot into the sky just as a twin beam shoots down, hitting the glassy stone in front of her. That light can only mean one thing. Well, two things. The king is dead, and in 30 days, Arley Bellator will get to go home. Ooh. End of book.
Big asterisks next to that. It's time to reach for the foraging magic and unravel key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, theories, and oh, so much more. Immediately after leaving the palace the morning after the armory explosion, Diem goes straight to the healing center and quits. She knew right when she first heard the explosions at her family's house that she couldn't continue her work as a healer. This explosion was because of her. 4 people died because of the information she passed on to the Guardians while on a patient visit, and the guilt of that will carry with her forever. Diem doesn't believe she deserves to be a healer anymore after she contributed to such death and pain. And what's more, being a healer is not her chosen path. She was already subconsciously questioning her career as a healer. She's great at it and has been taught it since she was a little girl, but this was her mother's choice for her, not Diem's. She never had her own path to possibly go on in the first place. And now Diem's world has turned upside down. Oh girl, just wait a few more chapters. Amid everything she is unsure of, being a healer is one thing she can no longer identify with.
In the series where so much is chosen for Diem or things feel out of Diem's control, I do have a quiet pride for her around this decision. Quitting the healer center doesn't mean that Diem will no longer think of herself as a healer. Those values and those rules are embedded into her nervous system. But her feeling at rock bottom here, she's still taking reins over her life. Quote, even if it led me into the misty unknown. I'm just so proud of her.
Me too. It's like last episode when she felt a shift in the sail of her own journey. And while she doesn't know where life is leading her, she does know this is not the path anymore, and as scary as it is, she is embracing it, and that's something to really be proud of, no matter what, no matter who you are. But luckily, and honestly not to anybody's surprise, Moira takes the news well. After all, she's the one who called out that Diem's heart isn't in healing, and she only ever wants the best for Diem. Go Moira, we love you!
I'm quickly learning that Moira might be one of my favorite characters, obviously besides Luther, in book 1, because what a 10 out of 10 boss.
I know. I just love her so much. Their hours of conversation, including both laughs and tears, was also probably so healing for Diem. Diem. No, it might not have had a lasting effect because, she's about to go have to face off with Henry, but dang it, Diem needed that connection with a maternal figure during a turbulent time. And then I love how Moira absolutely wants to ask questions about what the heck Diem's been up to, but she doesn't because she knows now's not the time to pry. While we'll see Moira a little bit in the next few books, this felt like such a send-off for all of us with her. And I'm really going to miss Moira and her good-natured sass.
And then there's Diem's conversation with Henry. Oh, buckle up, buttercups. While Diem was anxious to talk to Moira, the fear of going in to talk to her best friend has her rooted to the floor. The last time she saw him, she was running away from him and the other Guardians after having tricked them into slightly letting down their guard. And in that time, it feels like so much has changed. Diem doesn't want to work with the Guardians anymore. She ran into a burning building saving Descended. She slept over at the palace. No, she's still wearing Luther's clothes going to talk to her fiance, or her almost fiance. And she kissed another man and loved it, despite what her logical brain is trying to tell her. Everything that connected Diem and Henry together feels like it has been flipped on its head. But they are still best friends. That hasn't changed. And she feels like she owes it to him to clear the air. Note, she doesn't feel like she needs to apologize to him, but instead ask the questions she needs to know the answers to and provide the answers she knows he's seeking. And subconsciously, I also think she's feeling a little guilty for kissing another dude. Maybe not like for the act itself of the kiss, but more for like what she felt during the kiss. AKA all the feelings she thought that quote unquote time would give her with Henry, she felt instantly with Luther.
And might I remind everybody, she did not think of Henry once when she was having that kiss with Luther, and it's only until after now and all the whole fact here, it's like, oh yeah.
Well, she never even on the page says like, oh, I feel guilty for kissing another dude. Like she doesn't. Yeah. I think it is subconscious. I don't think it's at the forefront of her brain because to be quite honest, she has way more other things on her mind right now. So practicing the beginning of their conversation over and over, the entirety of her thoughts leave her head the second she raises her hand to the door. But then a voice calls behind her. Hello, Henry.
Okay, this entire conversation requires a Henry hat. It's the rather disastrous culmination of what these two represent and what we've been discussing throughout this deep dive. For those of you watching this on video, you may be thinking, a chef hat isn't such a crazy hat when you're about to defend Henry's involvement in the very bad things the Guardians do. And you'd be right, which is why this isn't just a chef hat. We've got Remy from Ratatouille under here pulling the strings. Over these past 4 Spark episodes, and even during our intro episode's interview with Penn, it's important to keep bringing up how aligned Henry and Diem used to be in their hatred for the Descended. Yes, Henry has had an extra dose of hate for the Descended because he hasn't been sheltered like Diem, but together they've spent countless hours villainizing the Descended and envisioning a world where the mortals have true freedom. Henry is now leaning more into exactly what they've spent their lives believing in and sharing together. Down with the Descended and rights for the mortals. Then there's Diem, who is running into Lumnos City to save Descended's lives at the cost of the Guardian mission. She's showing up to his house wearing royal guard pants and a Descended man's tunic. We may understand her POV and how her journey has led her here, and we commend her heart for trying to right wrongs and do the morally right thing. But Henry feels like Diem is changing sides and abandoning her own kind. It goes right back to that us versus them that Diem might want to believe, but her heart can't divide innocent people up like that. So yeah, this conversation is doomed from the start, with Diem wearing the enemy's clothes, royal guard attire no less, who are known for being rough with the mortals, and he realizes she slept over at the palace. I guess that answers our question from last episode. I know we were kind of like wondering, but nope, he does know, although I don't think he knows that it was in Luther's bed. That would be a very different conversation. No matter what, Henry genuinely feels betrayed by Diem here.
I'm gonna give Henry this. He's starting out concerned for her and seeing if she was injured in the fire last night. He is angry. Absolutely. We will get into that in a moment. And he's balancing it with making sure his best friend is okay right off the bat. His priorities are the Guardians. He showed that last night. But his care for Diem is still up there on the list too. It's not so black and white. But when learning that she's not injured, but she still slept over at the palace and again, wearing another man's clothes, I think part of his anger is also a bit of maybe jealousy isn't the right word, but because as she claims it, she was unconscious but not hurt, and yet she still slept over at the palace. Also, in his mind, he sees her loyalty wavering. Obviously, the loyalty to the Guardians is wavering, but more so to Henry and their mutual hate for the Descended that has bonded them for well over a decade.
And that's not even mentioning what she did last night. Henry vouched for Diem with joining the Guardians. There was serious hesitation with her acceptance because of her father's role in the army and her mother's strict rule not to involve Diem in the Guardians. But with Henry's encouragement, his belief in her value to the Guardians, she was given a chance. Trust among the Guardians is absolutely essential. And at the first big opportunity, she betrayed them and risked a Guardian mission to save the very Descended the mission intended to destroy. She put their lives at risk. She put the mission at risk. She put all of the Guardians at risk. And now she's proven she can't be trusted with following orders, and way more importantly, she can't prove that she has loyalty to the Guardians over the Descended. Diem is officially a major liability for the Guardians, and Henry is stuck in the middle of his two loyalties.
The truth is neither one of them have been truly faultless in their communications with one another. Henry has found his way around the truth when talking to Diem about the flowers or the tattoo or her mother, and yes, we have called out each and every one of those moments. So it is fair to highlight this moment where Henry is calling out Diem for her lie last night. Henry believed her when she said she'd drop her mission to go help the injured because she didn't want to jeopardize the Guardians' mission. Even if Vance and the other Guardians didn't believe her in the moment, Henry believed that she really wanted to put the Guardians over her need to help others. And given how Diem has thrust herself into Guardian mode, I get why Henry would believe her hierarchy. Now, this all has a big asterisk next to it, because last night he wasn't thinking of her feeling like a prisoner or unsafe surrounded by 6 men hyped up on murder, which did contribute to Diem feeling like she needed to lie her way out of it. His eyes were instead laser focused on the mission and Diem not fucking it up, basically. So my extension to Henry has a major asterisk next to it.
Well, he thought he knew in his heart Diem wouldn't choose a Descended over a mortal under any circumstances. Just like the way Diem knows Henry wouldn't let a child get hurt to need a healer, right? Yeah, about that. Diem had put 2 and 2 together that the Guardians set up the house call from a few weeks ago with their need to call a healer. She had already raised her suspicions about the convenient timing to Henry, who assured her it was a blessing from the old gods. I am nodding my head like crazy here, so my hat will be extra crazy. But then when the little girl told her the woman who gave her the death shade had brown eyes, Diem realized that a mortal poisoned the little girl, so they would call for a healer, which would be Diem, which can only mean that the Guardians were behind this. However, Diem assumed Henry was not aware of this setup because he would never lie to her and send her into that situation unknowingly. Yeah, but like we discussed a lot in that episode, Henry did know the Guardians poisoned the little girl, and that's why Diem was being called to their house. And now is when the truth reveals itself to Diem, where she realizes just how different her values are from Henry's, and that they don't see eye to eye anymore. I won't rehash what we already went over in episode 3, but since I already have my Henry hat on, from Henry's perspective, Diem is not looking at the bigger picture. She is on an impossible and, quite frankly, unrealistic mission to not let any innocent be harmed in this mortal rebellion against the Descended. And then as far as Henry is concerned, there is no innocent Descended. They've killed thousands of mortal children. What's wrong if one of theirs dies from accidentally ingesting the death shade? And what's more, Henry is urging Diem to look at the greater good. Henry asks, quote, if one spoiled Descended child had to have a mild rash for a day so thousands of mortals could live, how can you say that's not a price worth paying? And even Diem can't directly answer his question because she can't pick a side, and instead leans on the fact that he lied to her, because him lying at least feels like there's a right and wrong to it. Looking at this, a mild rash can save 1,000 lives philosophically, that very well might be considered a price worth paying. The Guardians were able to set back Bennett's shipments for months. They were able to take weapons out of Descended's hands and arm half of the rebel cells on the whole continent. That's huge. That is a huge victory for the Guardians in their fight against the Descended. I'm not trying to take a side with right or wrong here. I'm just channeling my inner Chidi from the good place and looking at this from a philosophical point. But we also know that it doesn't end at child with a mild rash. 4 descended guards lost their lives because they were working in the armory when it exploded. Which brings us back to Henry's loathing of all descended. The guards who were on duty were guilty because they are descended, because they take orders from the evil leaders. As far as Henry's concerned, you can't pick and choose who among the enemy is innocent and who is guilty. At a certain point, they're all guilty because they're all doing their jobs that directly hurt, oppress, and kill mortals. And none of them are going to stop until the mortals force them to face consequences. Quote, violence is the only solution. Every right the mortals have gained back, they've had to fight and kill for. People in power only give out these rights when they have no other choice, when they're afraid of what they'll lose otherwise. Quote, tell me I'm wrong, DM. Tell me you honestly believe we can win this war without bloodshed. And DM can't tell him he's wrong because she knows he's right. And yet, it is the last thing she wants and believes in, and she's not willing to resort to that as the only option. Henry's not done revealing the truth of these descended to DM, though. DM's lived a sheltered life and doesn't know about the true horrors that the descended are responsible for throughout history and on a daily basis for all other mortals in all the realms. Like the mortals who used to live in Igneos, at some point after the Blood War, Igneos cleared out all of its mortals when it closed its borders and banned them. The lucky ones went to Umbros, Igneos' northern neighbor, but the Igneos king didn't want the mortals from his realm to pass intel along to anyone else, specifically the Umbros queen. So the majority of the Igneos mortal citizens, the unlucky ones who could not get to Umbros, they were trapped in the dunes after Igneos' guards flushed them out of their towns, and they cooked under the sun. Henry goes on to say that the Igneos king called this long and painful death punishment for the Blood War. Then there's the prestigious and highly sought after invitations mortals get to the research institutions in Sofos. Exactly what Teller is hoping for, with his bright mind and descended academy education that very few other mortals get. But guess what? Henry reveals the truth of what happens to these mortals. After a while, they become the research, which absolutely horrifies DM. She has been praying for her brother to get an invitation to Sofos for years. It's his life's dream. And now she's learning the truth and cruelty behind what really happens to these mortals at the research institutions. In Heat of the Everflame, we will learn there is more to this truth that isn't quite so evil, which we'll discuss at length when we get to that point. We're also going to address it here in today's foreshadowing. But for now, DM is realizing just how naive she's been about these descended as Henry reminds her of all of their evilness. And while her sheltered bubble had already been popped, now it's really just like shoveling all of this really scary information at her because she didn't know. She had no way of knowing. And with all of this information that he's sharing, Henry is proving that they are all evil.
When we interviewed Penn for our intro episode, she mentioned paying attention to the moments in the series where Henry is calling out DM's naivete. She doesn't want mortals to be killed. She doesn't want descended to be killed. But when Henry here is asking, okay, then what is your solution? She has nothing. And he's calling her out that if she doesn't have an answer, then let's keep going with the answer that they have done so far, violence. While also mentioning that her view of not wanting to shed blood is a very privileged way of thinking. While he does not blame her for that privilege, the reality is still there. He's saying, you don't know how bad it is out there, aka you don't know how much these descended truly deserve what the Guardians are dishing out. She only knows if the Guardians believe that hurting innocents is going to get them power, then they're no better than the descended. But again, she doesn't have an alternative. There's another moment that Penn brought up in our intro episode. Many in this world, Henry included, believe that strength and fighting back is only available through violence. But what Penn is challenging us readers to believe here is that what if the strength is holding on to your values, even when those surrounding you disagree? Or worse, those surrounding you are giving you the agree with me or we're no longer on the same team talk. Henry is DM's closest friend. We've talked about that endlessly. We are not done talking about that endlessly. She's followed his lead before, but she's learning that what he believes is strength and victory, she does not agree with. And by holding her ground and not conforming herself to be something that she is not, this is a moment DM is exercising that strength that we will see from her time and time again. Let's do a quick catch up on what Henry's been up to for the last day. He's been with the Guardians all damn day, trying to convince them not to stab DM in the back. Well, attempting to stop them from outright murdering her in fear that she'll betray them and their mission, Henry told them that she was just trying to do her job as a healer. Again, I do want to point out that Henry is trying to protect DM here, showing that while, yes, his allegiance is with the Guardians, he is not casting her out entirely. Again, it's not that black and white.
He's simultaneously trying to convince the Guardians she's on their side, and to DM that you are aligned with the Guardians, right? Like, that was our whole thing growing up for the last few decades.
But let's just take a moment, as we do here on Fantasy Fangirls, and put ourselves in the Guardians' POV. After they had their wildly successful mission that we talked about last episode, one of their own wants to run in and help the very people they are trying to bring down. She saw them on the road. She knows who exactly is behind the attack. Then, and this is if they know this part, she spent the night at the palace, in the heart of enemy territory. She could have easily blabbed or made an ally in the palace who she would then talk to, and then they could tell the information she shared. She's a liability to their cause and their secrecy. Now, little do they know that Luther already knows who they are and what they're doing. But the rebels want assurance that she is not going to reveal anything about the Guardians. And from their point of view, I get it. But while DM assures Henry that she's not going to say anything, she'll consider everything forgotten, she literally just wants nothing to do with these fuckers anymore. Henry says that her word is not enough.
DM is definitely an I can fix it person.
Yeah.
She thinks she can get herself out of any situation. And I feel like it used to come from, a bit of an ego. But now it's a desperation as she tries to fix her stumbles. Now that she doesn't have her footing in her life or her identity anymore. When she's like, don't worry, like, I just won't do it again. And Moira's like, are you kidding me? Like, you're not going back there. She's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. She's like, no, it is not.
Yeah.
And this is a very similar thing here with Henry. Of course, the stakes are different and very much higher with the Guardians. But he's like, that's not going to cut it. Like, that's not how this works. Like, we are adults. Like, this is some really big shit here.
Well, and I agree with what DM's implication around her next question is. What would make them feel assured? But Henry doesn't answer, which is ominous. Instead, he tells her to lie low and to not go into Limno City or near the palace or anything like that, which, LOL, that's not going to happen. But I want to see if I'm reading between the lines correctly here. Is Henry saying that she has to stay away from the Descended or Lumnos City because he doesn't want her to be at a house call for the Descended and then like oops, oh no, that house happened to be burned down. What a coincidence. Because that's what I'm gathering from this.
I never thought about that. I always took it as Henry telling DM to lay low so the Guardians don't get suspicious that she's going to say anything to the Descended. That she doesn't let on more than she already has, that she's on their side. Because he's essentially saying, you can't go even near them because the Guardians are already really nervous about your loyalties here. I don't know if the Guardians would actually straight up murder her. I kind of don't think so. I think that it was definitely discussed, and that is something that Henry is not willing to outwardly share with her. But he's also heavily hinting at, like, this is really serious here.
I think they would. I 100% think they would. Like, so this actually, it brings me to a question, and that is, what do you think would have happened if DM hadn't become queen? She was in Mortal City with the Guardians breathing down her neck.
I think that the Guardians would have had a very close eye on her. Like, she would have been going, let's say that she still worked as a healer, she would have been going to see her patients, and there would be like a Guardian following her or something like that. I could also see Vance making her have to prove her loyalty to the Guardians. So all of those things that she's already been having to do would just be like nothing compared to this new task that he would have to set for her to really show, like, you are either with us or against us. I could, going back to your whole thing about, like, you know, murder and things like that, like, if they even get a hint that, nope, we don't trust her or anything like that, like which she's already very much close to that, she might have an accident.
That's what I think is going to would have happened.
And Henry wouldn't have been able to stop it because it's kind of like, yeah, you did this to yourself. Like, that is his conversation that he's telling her here is like, I'm trying to help you, but you got to work with me.
Yeah. I definitely think they would have done something where it's like, oops, like, what a coincidence. How interesting. I think they would have done that regardless because I'm just putting myself in Vance hat here. He is so protective over the cause, specifically the cause that he is wanting to create. And if they have this kind of level of liability here, I don't think they'd have any problem. I think there's even a line later on in Heat where DM says to Henry, where she's like, he would have no problem letting you die for the cause.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So I think he wouldn't have had any problem taking her out. But luckily that doesn't happen. This dark, let's change the subject.
The silence that follows this argument reflects the impasse that Diem and Henry are at. Their simple and pure love is no more, and the more Diem wants to go back to that effortless joy, the more it seems to float away. In the midst of so much uncertainty and change, Diem is holding on to the concept of Henry and their familiar ease. But that's the key word, the concept of Henry. Their argument just proved they are both not willing to do the same things for their shared goals. But that doesn't keep Diem from freaking out as she feels like she's in freefall. She just quit being a healer and now she's losing Henry too? Diem doesn't know who she is beyond that. And when Diem loses her sense of gravity, she clings to the familiar even when she just acknowledged it's slipping away. But she can't bear that reality. We are going to see this so much in Glow. So she tries harder to grab onto what she wants to want, a life with Henry, away from this. What if they leave everything here and start somewhere fresh, far away, like Umbros, or even away from Amarian, away from these guardians and the fact that they think Diem is an enemy now, away from the Lunos descendants' oppression, away from Prince Luther and those feelings he stirs deep within Diem.
I can't help but think of what the madam said to Diem when she went to Paradise Row, when she was telling her, don't live a mediocre life for a mediocre man and go explore, get off this goddamn continent. And here is Diem saying, let's go explore. But remember, the madam also said that if he's truly the one, he will come along for the ride. Guess what Henry picks? It's not that, because Henry sees this as running away. And while he says he can't because his father and his work is here, we can infer a huge unspoken reason is also because the Guardians are here too. We question the Guardians and their actions, but Henry has felt more passion, more drive, more belonging since being part of this rebellion. They're a family to him, and he believes so wholly in their vision and their mission. And he believes that he can help in this upcoming war. So he turns the question instead onto Diem. You really want to leave Teller alone?
I was going to ask you, do you think Diem could really leave Teller?
No, absolutely not.
I think in the heat of the moment right now, she could. But within at most a day, she would regret leaving her family for Henry because their incompatible problems would still be there. She would be running away from her problems, but bringing one of those major problems with her. And she really doesn't want Henry to be one of those problems. She wants him to be the solution, even though it's like she knows better, but she just can't bring herself to acknowledge that because that's losing Henry too.
Which Diem replies to this, you really want to leave Teller alone, with, well, he won't be alone. He'll have father. Yeah, Diem, about that. Because it turns out there's a little bit more information that Henry left out. Andre is being called back to the army to be a leader against the Miros Guardians. Ooh.
We will find out in Glow that rebels have been attacking almost half the ports in Miros, leading the realm to consider closing its borders to mortals.
And Andre already sent back his acceptance one whole week ago. Oh, the irony that Andre will be fighting against the Guardians that Diem just helped to arm very, very, very well. And he'll also be fighting in a war that has been kicked off because of bombings like the bombings last night. It wasn't kicked off because of last night, but they're starting to pop up more and more. But the fact that she has to hear this from Henry is a tough look for Andre. But also the fact that Henry tells her in this way is a tough look for Henry. He's telling her in a way that I'm sure he believes is warning her. But the truth of the matter is he's just too angry at those who are associated with the Descended, Andre included. And seeing these situations as black and white, that anger rears its ugly head through him, telling Diem things like, quote, he's a Descended puppet, and, quote, he chose a Descended over you and Teller, your mother, and all his own people. Woof, Henry, I know you're mad, but bro, come on. She lost her mom. Don't talk to her this way.
This news does not sit well with Diem. In fact, she refuses to believe it. She is so tired of secrets and feeling like she's the last person to find out important, life-changing information. Her father can't possibly leave her and her brother to go fight in a war against the rebels, against people like Henry. All she has to cling to is that Henry is wrong. Diem doesn't feel like she has many constants left in her life. But her father and brother are the two at the top of her list. And now not only is she being told her father father is leaving and has been lying by omission about this, but that he's a descended puppet who's going to be killing mortals like Henry and Diem. So her first reaction is to simply not believe it, while her second reaction is to hope beyond hope that there is miscommunication here, an explanation for this unfathomable truth that Henry is telling her. As Diem heads home, all she can dwell on is how everything is wrong now, and in the span of a day, her life has been turned on its head. Yes, it felt like it was when her mother left, but now her career is over and she has no money or other career prospects. The Guardians see her as an enemy, and knowing what they're capable of, that's terrifying. Teller's hopeful future of going to Sofos is gone, and he doesn't even know it. Her father is about to march off to war. Her mother is still missing, and she's failed in learning more about her disappearance, even when she had the possible opportunity. Speaking of that possible opportunity, Luther kissed her and it made her feel things. Diem still feels a calling to fight and take down the Descendant. Quote, a blood debt I was born to repay. Okay. That feels like major foreshadowing. It also reminds me of what the Queen of Umbros said to Diem back in chapter 1 about life for life, old debt requires, or eternal be his yoke. Blood debt? Yes, we know that her blood is tied to a spell, and I am convinced it is the Kindred's curse. Think about why Ofai tried to stab his newborn daughter, so her blood could fall on the Heartstone and free him. But there's got to be more to this magic within her blood and how it is connected to the Kindred. Through all of this uncertainty, Diem does feel inclined to do one thing. She's not going to give up on her mission of seeking out justice between the Descended and mortals, but she's going to do it on her own terms and not in line with the violent tactics the Guardians are executing.
Walking through the house, Diem can already tell Dad is mad. He's seated at the table with his hands clasped in a hard line between his brows. It's been roughly 24 hours since his daughter ran out of the house, running into Lumnos City after bombs went off. And in that time, he went to Lumnos City to try and find her, but was turned away when no mortals were being let through. Remember, the only reason Diem did get let through is because she was like, Luther, you prick! My girl. Then he went to the healer's center thinking that she would be waiting to be called for, but she wasn't there either. Then he came home thinking she'd returned, but again, no Diem. And a very different day flashed into his memory, the day when Arley disappeared. My heart really pours out to Andre here. Yes, he's mad, and we will get to all of that in a moment, but under the anger is a father who was terrified because bombs were going off and he couldn't find his daughter only months after losing his wife. Losing, quote unquote. But that worry and fear is buried under lots of anger because, as Andre will say, he received a letter from one Mr. Prince Luther Corbois himself saying how his daughter was recovering in his personal care. Multiple things here. Number one, Andre is familiar with the royals, having worked with King Ulthar on matters within Mortal City. He also absolutely knows Luther and his stoic reputation. Number two, she went to the Lumnos Palace, a place she is absolutely not supposed to be due to Arley's rules around the Descended. Number three, anytime he came into the palace, he was not allowed any further than a sitting room, and most definitely not as an overnight guest. And number four, put yourself in his shoes. He is hearing about his 20-year-old daughter spending the night at a palace under a handsome guard's personal care. Arley herself was even like, don't you fucking go near my daughter. And Luther was like, I promise I won't have sex with her, I swear. I know if our dad got this kind of note, he would have been furious for all the same reasons Andre is thinking.
I quake even just thinking about that rap.
You and I are both in our 30s, and I still would be like,
my God,
Dad,
yes.
I know. I'm sorry, Dad. We are married women. But that's not all the letter said. Luther goes on to commend Andre about his daughter, who is, quote, so courageous and selfless that she ran into a burning building to save the lives of 2 guards mere seconds before its collapse. Oh dear. So not only did she go against Arley's rules and go into the land of the Descended, but she also risked her own life, and somehow she was the only one who was able to go into this burning building when she was surrounded by guards. Again, this anger is from a place of absolute terror that his daughter is risking her life in such a way. My heart does kind of go out to Luther here a little bit, though, because I think in his mind, he's trying to be nice to Andre. He has a crush on his daughter, after all. So he's commending her to him, saying how she's so courageous, she's so selfless. We will see how far Luther does go in Glow to get Andre to warm up to him. He'll insist that Andre calls him Luther, not Prince Luther. And it's just so sweet. I love that. I imagine him writing this and just like wanting Andre to like him.
I think that this reflects how different family dynamics are between the mortals and descended.
Yeah.
This commending is a sign of worthiness among the descended. I know that's not what Luther is consciously thinking of, but the concept of worthiness and strength and power is so important for all of descended. And he's just telling this really scared dad who's just wants his daughter to be safe, and he's like, by the way, she was really great in the burning building, and Andre's like, ah!
And then she slept over in my bed. Oh God. But then Luther's letter goes on, telling Andre about the day Diem saved Lily's life and how she has since been the palace healer. Oh dear. I mean, livid doesn't even come close to the appropriate word here.
My inner daughter in trouble is like, okay, but that's
you do have a lot of
yes, I have a lot of experience in this area. That's not technically right. Because Diem has only been to the palace a handful of times and never without Moira. So she wasn't really the palace healer. At one point, she was the palace healer in training. I realize Luther probably does not have all of this information, though he did notice Diem wasn't coming to the palace recently. So if I was Diem, I would have been like, what the fuck? That's not even true. I see this as Luther wanting to make Diem look good, again, like I was just saying a little bit ago, and it unfortunately and very accidentally backfires. It's like his subconscious is bolstering up Diem's power and status because, yeah, it is really important to descended culture. Her being the palace healer has its own prestige to it as well.
Andre's wife was the palace healer.
Exactly.
He obviously holds her in very high regard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luther thinks he's helping, and it's like, oh no.
Okay, I want to try an exercise. I want Dad to read this chapter, and I want to see what his reaction is.
But Andre's not the only one with a right to be mad here. The argument is escalating. Now Teller is involved because it's out that his crush Lily is the Princess Lillian. Andre's going on about how the descended don't care about debts. Tensions are rising. Things are not looking good. And also, by the way, Andre is going back to the army at the end of the month because war has officially been declared. Oh dear. While Henry accuses Andre of being a descended puppet who does whatever they say, it's so interesting to get Andre's POV as he gets upset with Diem about Luther helping her. Quote, they don't care about debts to mortals. They believe they're entitled to our service as a matter of right. These are not words spoken from a puppet who blindly does their bidding. I find Andre especially so fascinating because he is not in the Amarian army because he believes the descended are good or fair. He's not drinking that Kool-Aid. But he's a realist who believes in peace above all else. He knows the horrors of war, and he has no desire to encourage fighting back against the descended. Not because he sides with the descended, but because he knows how powerful and strong they are, and how detrimental to the mortals these rebel attacks and war will have. The Guardians are a relatively small subgroup of mortals, but all of the mortals are going to pay. Yet from Henry's perspective, they already are. And that's where a bit of Andre's privilege shows. He didn't become the highest ranking mortal army commander and an unofficial advisor to King Ulthar without playing nice with the descended in charge. In this world that feels so divided between black and white, it's easy to see how this comes off as siding with the descended, as giving up on one's own kind. But Andre sees it differently because he is looking out for their kind so that the harsher restrictions and punishments don't fall down on all mortals because of this rebel subgroup. Like Diem, Andre fights for peace. Unlike Diem, Andre fights for peace that is already in place.
Pretty sure my heart cracked into 10,000 teeny tiny pieces when Teller entered the living room and yells and begs for Andre not to go. At the end of the day, this family is so close. And while not completely honest about everything, they still love each other unconditionally. And it feels like another irreversible crack is about to wedge itself in the heart of the Bellator family. The truth is, this is an acceptance he feels like he had to turn in. As he will say, quote, these orders are not the kind that can be declined. After all, he can't say he has kids at home to take care of since they are both at adult age for mortals. But I do think subconsciously, there is a little part of him who, I won't say wants to go. No, I will say, I do say wants to go. He believes in stopping the Guardians who, in his eyes, are bringing nothing but bombings, thousands of death, and stricter rules for the mortals as punishment, like Lexi was saying. And here he is just trying to keep the freaking peace. Quote, if stopping a handful of rebels means preventing the destruction of our people entirely, then I'll happily do it. And as DM notes, this is almost note for note what Henry said. Just replace rebels with the Descended, and you've got the Guardian's excuse for wreaking havoc.
Both sides are so steadfast in their beliefs that this is for the greater good. I know I keep coming back to that reference, especially in this deep dive, but it really is so fitting. And what this entails, who's right or who's wrong, is entirely dependent on which side you're standing on. And that is such an important theme that Penn really wanted to illustrate in this story.
I also wonder if there's a little part of Andre that wants to go because Arley is off doing her mission. She's off doing that. And maybe he feels like he's out of touch with his passion or purpose from his old days.
I could definitely see that, especially with his children growing up too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he's maybe a little bit lonely. And I don't want to say like, wants to go back to the glory days, but wants to have that value. Like he knows that he is valuable. Like he was a very high ranking officer and he knows that his expertise and strategy and leadership is needed and he's not as needed at home.
Yeah. So while he's away, Teller will stay in school and Diem will take care of her little brother. It may require some more work hours at the healer center to make ends meet, but yeah, Dad, about that. The plan that Andre had that would mean his family would be okay without him is quickly falling apart with Diem having left the healer center. And this conversation, already breaching on the edge of going back to anger, falls right back into fight, with the voice inside Diem's head nodding in agreement. Fight, 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 WWE style. Standing her ground in her choice to quit the healer center, Andre comes back with telling her, then, okay, you'll marry Henry, and his family will provide for you and Teller.
L. I love you, Andre, but that's an L.
That's an L. Putting ourselves in this mortal society, this is not out of the ordinary, but it is absolutely out of the ordinary for this family. Andre is not malicious. He is a father who is worried for his family. But Diem's ability to make her own choices in her own life, it's important to her, despite the massive turn it's about to take.
We can't forget about the family dinner that very recently happened. It was only the day before, where he wanted to listen to her hesitations about marrying Henry, and he supported her in her decisions, no matter what she chose. This really goes to show how unlike him this demand is, and that it's coming from a place of fear and worry and him spiraling himself.
At the end of the day, Diem just quit the healer center because she felt like it wasn't her path or her choice. Whether she marries or does not marry Henry is another choice she will fight for. Not only in this book, but it will also be a running theme, especially in Glow. Remember when Taryn is going to be sitting with Diem after they train, and he's going to be saying, like, don't marry the mortal, be with Luther, and Diem is like, fuck you, I get to make my own choices.
Yep.
Understandably, already so angry and ready to fight, Diem screams that it is her choice to marry Henry and it will not be Andre's. After all, Arley would never have forced her into marriage.
And it's so hard too, because it's like, we would never imagine Andre to either. And yet in this moment, under these circumstances, that's not the side of him that we're seeing.
Well, it also just... I love these moments in books where parents are imperfect.
Yeah.
Because when we're little, it feels like, for the most part, they can be these perfect beings. But part of growing up is realizing how your parents aren't perfect. I love you, Mom and Dad, but you're not perfect. And just like we aren't. And it really goes to show that this is a moment of Andre not being that perfect father and that perfect Bellator.
Exactly. All this time, the voice inside Diem is shrieking to be unleashed. Fight. Her emotions are on edge. She is fighting for her own choices and for herself. Whenever that happens, her godhood rallies. Fight. This time feels scarily different, though. And in the moment, Diem isn't able to control herself separate from the voice like she has been able to do before. She's a passenger to her own rage as it devours her and strikes at those causing her distress. So she fights back with her words as her weapons. You are not my father. We don't have to explain how much these words ring in the air. They have never been uttered in this household before. There's never been any reason for them to be said. Andre has wholeheartedly loved Diem as his own, and she has embraced him as her father all her life. In fact, almost everyone else believes he is her biological father. I can't help but wonder if her godhood egged on this particularly hurtful phrase, especially as it wants to fight when he responds with, "I am the closest thing to one that you will ever have." It's like her real paternal bloodline, which is part of her godhood, is angry at Andre.
Ooh, I love that.
But these are words you can't take back. Like when Diem was in the inn with Henry and confronted him about lying to her, she wanted to physically and emotionally hurt him beyond healing. And here she's feeling the exact same thing, more intense, if anything. So she channels her own rage into words that just slice as good as any other weapon, striking her father right where it will pain him the most, because his daughter is his everything, even if they're not blood related.
Let's talk about that twisting knife, because she asks Andre why he stopped looking for Arley, why he's acting like she'll walk through the door any minute, why he has not grieved her loss. These are thoughts that have been circling around Diem's mind for months, but as we'll learn in Glow, Andre does know more than he's letting on to his children. He stopped looking for her because he knew she was going to be going on a trip, but he had every faith in her that she would be coming back, hence why he hasn't been grieving her loss. He does believe that she'll walk through the door any minute because he knew she'd be gone for a long time, but that long time could be up any moment. But Diem has no idea where her mother is, if she's alive, if she's dead, if anything. And with Andre having been acting like Arley's only been on this long trip, it sets off that "I feel like I'm the last to know anything" trigger that Diem's been feeling a lot lately. So that fight voice urges her to go one step forward, wanting to crush his body and spirit with a wound he can never recover from. Woof. Just like she had with Henry back at the inn in Fortos. But then she was in semi-control, at least enough to tell him to leave. Not here. And oh boy. Diem screams about how perhaps Andre is the reason Arley is truly gone. Perhaps he didn't care for Arley at all.
And this dad can only be accused of so many hurtful things before he snaps, turning the table over and roaring at Diem to get out of his house. It is so hard to see this gigantic family fight, especially after last episode's wholesome family dinner. But even that conversation waded into tense waters when Diem pressed her father about their mother's whereabouts. At this point, she has zero fucks left to give. Combined with her godhood, Diem purposefully delivered words to crush her father's spirit, to strike a wound so vicious he might never recover. And oof, she succeeded. Nobody's a winner here. Everybody gets a bit of an L here. Everybody, I understand everybody's perspective, and everybody gets an L.
And they still get an L, absolutely.
Except for Teller. Teller is the only one who
No,
does not.
Teller's oh my god.
I don't think we will ever give Teller an L. When will be the day that we give him an L? I won't want to even think about it.
Maybe in Heat, but it may be a lowercase L, but I don't even know then.
I don't think so.
There's this moment where Diem says, she says, like, perhaps you're the reason Arley's not coming back and you're the reason she's gone. And Teller just, like, looks at Diem and says, Diem, like, he says her name just in absolute horror. And it just, like, oh.
And as they're yelling at each other, like, he's like, stop, please, stop. Oh, my gosh, I know.
He's so sweet and innocent. I love him so much.
This is just all so tough because we know how great of a father Andre is, as like we've been saying. We know how much he cares for his family and that he really doesn't know where their mother is. And I bet he blows up like this because he is so anxious about where his beloved wife is. He is holding on to hope that she's on the long mission she preemptively warned him about. But I do wonder if in the back of his mind, he is freaking out because she had said that she would give him a heads up before her departure and she didn't. And here is both his worst fear and the biggest misconception about him thrown in his face by one of the two people he loves most in this world, who he probably feels like he's failed between their mother's disappearance and the army calling him back.
This just breaks my heart even more. I know I keep saying that because it's true. That the next time Andre and Diem will see each other will be just a few days from now at King Ulther's funeral, and he will be crying as she falls to her knees in front of the crowd, trying to use her magic to light the pyre. I wonder, because we don't know if he knew she was queen, so I wonder if he was just thinking she was with Henry or something. But can you imagine him sitting in the audience and then the Queen of Lumnos just waltzes up and he's like, holy shit, that's my daughter. Like, oh, Andre.
As Nicole and I were preparing for today's episode, we really wanted to reach out to Penn and get a little bit more insight into Arley and Andre's dynamic, especially with her leaving. Why didn't she tell him when she had warned him that she would? All of those little things, and also just like her role as a spy and him knowing that he doesn't always need to know her secrets. So let's hear what Penn has to say.
Why didn't Arley tell Andre about the island? Well, number one, I think she believed she was keeping him safe. You know, this is kind of how Arley operates, right? She believes that if she keeps secrets from people and doesn't tell them the truth, that they're safer, better off that way, especially when it comes to the Guardians, because anything to do with the Guardians is a death sentence. So for Arley, keeping Andre in the dark is the way to keep him the safest she can. And that's also just kind of how their relationship operated. She had secrets from her time in the army. She had secrets about the Guardians, and Andre knew that, and he chose to love her anyway. We see him mention that at the end of Spark, that he didn't need to know all of her to love all of her. He accepted that there were things she wouldn't tell him, and that's just how they were together, and they loved each other regardless. Number two, I think Arley would have told Andre she was at least going somewhere, but in my headcanon, she didn't have a chance. I sort of imagine that Arley went to see the king and realized he was closer to death than she thought. She thought now is the chance to act. She confronts Luther in the alleyway. She says, "Take me to the island. This is the time. You're going on Forging Day. You can pick me up when you go for your coronation," which should only be, in a few weeks, maybe just a few more days. And he says, "Okay, but we have to go right now, right this second." So she has no time to go tell her family, to prepare anything. Of course, Vance knows because they've been talking about what they might do if she's able to get to the island. But otherwise, she really doesn't have a chance to warn anyone. So I think in a perfect world, she definitely would have told her family that she was traveling so that they wouldn't worry. But she just didn't get the chance because Luther said, if we're going to do this, we're doing this right now. And she knew she wouldn't have another chance if she didn't act on it.
Despite putting distance between herself and her father, Diem's anger only grows and is mutating into something completely unrecognizable. The only thing she knows to do is keep running away, both in fear of what she's capable of doing to her loved ones and in terror of what's happening to her with this voice and her struggle to breathe and everything that is physically happening.
As Diem crashes to her knees on the shore of the sea, Diem starts to burn up, everything in her feeling like it's made of fire as a pressure in her head starts to pound, and a voice says, quote, "Free me, daughter of the forgotten." While we never get this confirmed, I'm assuming this is Lumnos talking to her?
Oh, see, I wondered if it was the 10th Kindred somehow, especially saying, "I am your birthright and your destiny," or maybe not the 10th Kindred literally, but her godhood that comes from the 10th Kindred and establishes her as the daughter of the forgotten. Because I feel like it makes the most sense for this voice to be Lumnos, but there's no description about the voice being feminine like we've gotten with Lumnos talking earlier. So, I don't know.
Because there's also that moment in Fortos when she's about to get the Fortos crown and it says, "Claim me, daughter of the forgotten." And it sounds like Fortos, at least from what I was reading, but I could be wrong. Do you want to ask Penn?
Let's ask Penn.
Penn! Phone a Penn.
Are the voices that Diem hears urging her to claim me the voices of Lumnos and Fortos? So kind of, but not really. I think those voices are more of these magical forces that are either inside of her as a result of her being descended, or voices that are bestowed on her as part of receiving the crown. The voices, it's really more of like a feeling and an urge. Like this magic wants her to claim it. It wants her to use it and to embrace it. And she's, of course, resisting. So it's really urging her to stop fighting who she is and to claim her power. If those forces showed up in another creature, maybe they would manifest in different ways. But it's speaking to Diem in the language that she knows, which is through these thoughts in her mind. So it's really more of a a power that's linked to her godhood and to the crowns that is manifesting in the voices, as opposed to a specific sentient being who is talking directly to her.
All right, that makes absolute sense. And that's good for us to know moving forward. I love it. Thank you, Penn.
I'm really curious as to why she's burning up. This happens each time she's conscious and gets a crown, i.e. Fortos, Lumnos, and Umbros. She was knocked out from the explosion and the Guardians when the Montios King died, although she did feel, quote, a growing fire in my chest. So I'm assuming that's her unconscious way of feeling this super hot.
I guess I always assumed that burning up was just part of the transfer of the crown. There's a lot of new magic downloading into you all at once, and, it makes you overheat.
But with the heat burning through her and the voice in her head, Diem is screaming, unable to take the pain of it. So she lifts her hands to the sky itself, and a great beam of light shoots from them. Yes! So cool! I wonder if a large part as to why the crown passing is so painful for her, at least on this round, is because she has such a huge buildup of power that she hasn't used. We will know from Glow that when you don't expel your power, it can build up and make you really emotional and make you really quick to anger, which would explain why Diem, when she shoots her hands up into the air and expels a whole lot of magic, the voices hush and the burning goes away. Ah, that's so much better. All right, everything's back to normal, right? Right?
No! In fact, it will never be back to normal again. After she surrenders to the voice and all of her senses narrowed in on the warmth that has gathered atop her head, everything in existence seems to go still. Teller, who has been present and after he chased after his sister and has seen all of this happen, he looks at his older sister with a horrified stare and whispers, "Dee, you're wearing the crown. You've been selected. You are the new queen of Lumnos." Chills every time I read this, every time I say it out loud, chills, chills, chills. So that's why she's been feeling a headache coming on all day and pressure around the top of her head. That's why she just felt the warmth atop her head, because she has officially inherited the crown of Lumnos.
This crown of Lumnos is made of wispy black ringlets of thorny vines interlaced with twinkling stars. Oh, that's beautiful. It's not tangible. The crown is literally not able to be touched. I fucking love this shit. But instead, it's made of that light and shadow itself. Ah!
I remember reading this ending for the first time and being surprised but not shocked. You know what I mean? We've known there is more to Diem and that she must be half mortal, half descended. But at least for me, I assumed this was the big twist, that she is the new Lumnos crown. I don't ever remember imagining that she might have the power of all the realms and will become the crown of every realm, because she doesn't belong to just Lumnos or one of the other realms. She is the daughter of the Forgotten, a child of the 10th kindred, Omnos.
I remember I didn't start thinking, oh my God, she has the power of all kindred until I think it's Heat of the Everflame when she's in Igneos. Like, that's when I started realizing it. And I remember I was such a passenger princess the first time I read this book. I did not suspect anything weird about Diem until she got the crown. And then I was like, oh, that's cool. So, like, you say you were not surprised, but, like, it is surprising. I was surprised, and it was surprising.
See, it was the fact that she has other magic, that she is different even from the Descended, that I definitely did not expect.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah. In this moment, we can't even imagine what's to come for Diem and the crowns, but we can begin to comprehend just how out of her element she's about to be. This series is about someone who becomes the most unlikely ruler, and I love how this whole first book has been setting up for who Diem is as a mortal before her life drastically changes. Penn has said that the idea of this whole series is founded in asking herself, what would happen when the most unlikely person becomes queen? It's masterful how we get this cliffhanger of her brother Teller exclaiming that Diem has been selected as the new crown of Lumnos. It automatically means she's the most powerful descendant in this realm. It means that she is now the Guardian's very real enemy, which includes Henry. It is the truth that Diem's been hiding from all book, all her life, now staring her in the face. Which, by the way, it's so fitting that it's Teller who is with her at this pivotal moment. Since he goes to the Descended Academy, he knows far more about Descended than Diem, and he's here to be with her when it's revealed she truly is Descended.
Little asterisk next to that, Descended. But let's pause for a moment and rewind like we're about to return a movie to Blockbuster and go back to the night the king of Lumnos died, aka 30 minutes ago, but across town. Because we're so lucky that we get this entire scene from Luther Corbois' point of view. I missed you, my Phil. Right after making out with Diem, Luther heads back to the palace and receives word that the king is in his final moments.
My heart hurt to read that the guards informed the rest of the family that this was the end for Ulthar. Twice, they told them twice, and no one else is here. Despite being the king of Lumnos, the head of House Corbois, and the most powerful man in the realm, no one but Luther and Taryn are here right now to pay their final respects. After Ulthar's mate was killed soon after he became the crown, Ulthar became a shell of a man, too trapped in the past and too weak, too easily controllable. It goes back to when Diem was alone with him, and she cared for him when it was only the two of them because it seemed like the right thing to do.
And I think it also goes back to the Descended caring for strength. And yes, strength of magic absolutely is first, but strength of will, strength of control, strength of wanting power is also something they value very highly. And of the three brothers, Ulthar is not someone who has those qualities after his mate died. So I think a lot of them lost respect for the king when that happened.
I agree. And they took advantage of him, and that's what he's been. He's just been somebody that they can take advantage of.
Yeah. So with his cousin Taryn by his side, making fun of Luther for having a sleepover the night prior, I love that they're over their uncle's body. And he's like, so you get some last night? Nice, cuz. Like, that's great. The two men see Ulthar with foamy red liquid trickling from his lips, and Taryn runs to get their siblings as well as the king's brothers. But Luther stays with Ulthar. I'm not going to lie. It feels so fitting that it's just Luther and Ulthar together in his final moments. Like, that is so right for their characters. And that Luther became Ulthar's one sense of passion and drive after his mate died. But then something very similar to what we covered last episode with Diem happens. Ulthar's eyes flash open and find Luther's immediately, and the king rasps out for Luther to find the girl with gray eyes. I know this is not his reasoning, but it makes me chuckle thinking of Ulthar being like, wait, I wasn't done talking to her yet. I was interrupted. I need my Lumnos. I need to finish talking to her. But Ulthar will go on to say, quote, the girl, she brings death, war, an end for everything. You must use the sword. He's pointing at the dual sword that Luther is holding, but I have a feeling he's not referring to that exact sword. Instead, instead, I think he's referring to the sword that Diem is using in her vision, unless I have a crack theory. We've pointed out moments where Diem's death is very heavily foreshadowed. What if there's a moment where Luther has to use the sword on Diem, or at least stab her in some way? I could never see Luther doing that unless there was a real damn good reason for the entire world, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And even then, I think we'd have a Romeo and Juliet situation on our hands.
Yeah, all I could think is, like, Luther would fall on his sword before ever doing that to Diem. Like, even if it meant the end of the world.
Yes, but I could see there be a moment where, like again, we foreshadowed how much this Diem's death and even in the prophecies and stuff like that, there's this foreshadowing of there has to be a price to pay. And this gift that needs to happen also. What if the gift is the passing of the crown, with Diem having to lose the crown? I do not think she will stay dead. I'm staying true to that. I do not see a situation where we're going to have that.
So see, I figured the reference to using the sword is for Ophiuchi, and the sword must be used on him. Like, could that be the gift Lumnos is referring to? The Kindred's gift, our gift, as she said, is the blade that Diem will have, and it's Luther who will have to kill her father. I could see the series ending with Diem losing her magic from the bonded bargain, but being okay with it because it is Luther who ends up killing him, and it's not her. All of this really does seem ominous for darling Diem, huh? It's also very interesting because the Kindred seem to have faith in Diem, but the king does not. Maybe he's seeing the future she's working toward, and it's bringing the mortals up, which he's like, no. Again, King Ulthar was not super against the mortals like some of the other houses are. If that was the case, then he would have made all of the mortals leave a while back. He definitely did pass some very, very bad laws, and most of it was in a compromise. But still, he is a descended crown, and according to Luther, he's been a bit of a pushover, and he did allow all those evils to happen. So I think that Lumnos and maybe Ulthar are not seeing eye to eye here in the same body.
It that way. I kind of assumed he was the puppet of Lumnos in that way. But yeah, I think you're right.
I will say, though, Ulthar is insistent that Luther has to find this girl with the gray eyes, and maybe it's not to cause her harm, but to help her. And Luther needs to use the sword for something else.
I love how in the middle of the scene, Sarai lets out a piercing shriek. That this shriek will not only be heard by Luther, but also Diem in her chapter that we just covered when she gets the crown, but also orally from Kareel. Sarai's got some pipes on her, my girl. I love, love, love when chapters are all happening at the same time and there's these very clear timestamps for us as readers.
Yes, I do appreciate that when that happens and they are very, very clear and maybe don't poke holes in our biggest theory. But that's not about this series. Anyway, earlier in this bonus chapter, Taryn asked Luther how he felt being almost king. It cannot be underestimated that everyone thought Luther was the only candidate to be the next crown. Yet Luther gave Taryn a standard answer, that Uther prepared him as best he could. That was not a, yes, I am ready to become king, or even an acknowledgement that he will become the king. He is the only person who actually doesn't believe that he will be. And then as he looks at himself in Sarai's reflection, Luther sees that he does not have the crown on his head after it's disappeared off of Uther and he's passed away, which means he's not the new king of Lumnos. Quote, all the planning and plotting for me to become king had been a laughable waste. Luther's not upset that he doesn't have the crown. He's a man on a mission to find the woman who was just crowned Queen of Lumnos. Because while he has no crown over his head, he can feel his magic humming and tugging his attention east, toward the pale blue light beaming up toward the sky from the forest outside Mortal City, where Diem just got the transfer of power. In his bones, he knows she must be the new crown. And yes, it is certainly time to go find her.
Side note, I love how his chapter starts with him looking at his reflection in a mirror and then ends with him looking at his reflection through Sarai's eyes, especially for someone who doesn't look in the mirror very often, if ever, because of his scar and everyone telling him he needs to get rid of it before becoming king. It's just so poetic that he's looking at his scar, the proof of his devotion to Lumnos and Diem when Diem gets the crown. Ah! Meanwhile, somewhere else in Amarian, we are thrust into an epilogue with someone who we very quickly realize is Mrs. Arley Bellator. Right off the bat, you can feel the difference in the writing. It's clear that we are no longer in Diem's head, but instead we're watching Arley as she begins her daily routine in a remote location. But we also have Arley's epilogues written in third person, which I think is brilliant. We know that Penn was originally going to write the entire story in third person, even with Diem, but she switched Diem to first person because how important it is for us to be cemented in her thoughts and her deluluisms. But Arley remained in third, and I love it. Having a surprise chapter in third person, it adds an air of mystery, almost like we're spying on someone rather than watching through their own eyes. I remember getting this chapter on a first read and being like, what? Oh my God, I was so shocked because both from surprise and loving the twist that, Arley sure is alive, but also because we had no clue what half this chapter meant and we're not supposed to. But once you finish Heat of the Everflame and you go back, oh my God, there is so much here. And yes, we're about to go through all of it.
We immediately open with a timestamp. Arley has been elsewhere on Amarian for 6 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. Nice little reminder to us that Spark took place over the course of only a little more than a month, considering Arley has been gone almost 6 months at the beginning of chapter 2. In other words, she's been here since Foraging Day. And where is here, this elsewhere on Amarian? Kareel, the island located in the middle of the Sacred Sea where only the crowns are allowed to go. Arley's mission is this. Back on Foraging Day, she convinced Luther to let her secretly sail with him to Kareel. Remember that Luther was sailing to Kareel on Foraging Day because the crown of Lumnos' blood was required to cast the foraging spell, like every year on Foraging Day. Because King Uther was so ill, he was exempt from coming to the island himself, and that's why Luther was allowed to go in his stead with a vial of King Uther's blood to perform the annual foraging spell.
This is also what Yrcel did for the Umbros blood because she had more important places to be for Foraging Day, like in Lumnos to talk to Diem as the old woman.
The crowns only go to Kareel on 2 occasions, once a year on Foraging Day and for a new crown's coronation. Knowing the king was too ill to survive another year, Arley knew this past Foraging Day was her one chance to get onto Kareel before presumably Luther's coronation. Little did she know Uther would survive another 6 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days, Arley had figured it might be a month. And why did Arley need to get to Koreal in the first place? She had told Luther that there were rare medicinal plants that she needed to harvest.
Which is kind of true. Flame root is, as far as we know it, only grown on Koreal, which is why the crowns cannot use their magic here. And in her time here, Arley has managed to harvest a metric fuck ton of flame root for Diem to last her about another decade. Which, by the way, Arley also still believes that Diem is taking her flame root dosage every single day. Little does she know, it's at the bottom of the Sacred Sea.
But to be clear, Luther does not know that it is flame root that she is wanting to harvest. No. He hasn't put those two together. We'll explore all of that in Glow. But the real reason for Arley being on Koreal was so that she could plant bombs on the island so that they'll detonate during the new Luminous Crown's coronation. It's my understanding that she smuggled them onto the boat because Luther is not aware of the planned bomb attack. And then in this epilogue, she calls the bombs precious surprises that she miraculously managed to sneak in. The goal with these bomb explosions is not to kill the crowns in this rebel attack, but rather distract the crowns during the coronation and cause them to flee. So then the mortals, who are working on their own ways to sneakily come to Koreal in boats for the coronation too, can take the island hostage, which gives them the upper hand with the Descended in this war, because they understand how badly the Descended, specifically the crowns, need access to this island. So Arley's been waiting on Koreal for the next Luminous Crown's coronation when all the crowns have to come back here. She assumes that the new Luminous Crown will be Luther, and that'll be her best bet to get off the island. Plus, with it being the perfect opportunity for other guardians to get onto boats and sail here. So all in all, honestly, a pretty good plan. This is the kind of thing that Diem would be up for because it's not targeting people, it's a strategic territory approach, because we have to remember this island is off limits at all other times, and the shores and surrounding waters are monitored by patrol boats. So this is the one-shot opportunity.
We also know that there are 3 people who know about Arley's plan, and only 2 of those 3 know her exact location. But of course, it's Arley, and she's mysterious, even in her third-person inner monologue. So we get to guess. I assume the 2 people who know her location are Mother Dell, leader of Arboros, and Vance. But then the third person who knew of her plan, all I can think of is the Arboros Queen, given how she's working with the rebels.
Nicole, how are you forgetting about your beloved Luther? I think the 3 people she told of her plan were Vance, Mother Dell from the Arboros cell, and Luther. But only Mother Dell and Luther know her location, because Luther is the one who brought her to the location.
Okay, wait, no, hold on. Vance has to know her location, right? Because he tells Henry.
Yes, but remember how Vance said, the Arboros cell is doing this mission and we need somebody to help, and that's the boat mission, right? And so I think that Dell will coordinate this mission separately with Vance and give him only the last 25%, which includes the location, when the time gets closer. Because he had said the mission to find the boats.
As you can tell, this is bugging us quite a bit. So we asked Penn this very need to know question for us, and here's what she said.
Who are the 3 people who know Arley's plan and the 2 who know her location? Well, we know 1 who knows her location, which is of course Luther, because he's the one that took her there. The other is Vance. She and him had been planning this trip for a while. They wanted to do a mission on the island. They wanted to confront all of the crowns at one time, but they didn't really know how they would get there because the island is so heavily guarded. And then Arley saw this opportunity for Luther to take her on Forging Day, and they seized the chance that they had in front of them. The third person who knew about her plans but not her location was actually Andre. Now, saying he knew her plans is definitely a loose definition. She had warned him that she was going to go out of town at some time soon, but not when or where. And she, of course, didn't have the chance to tell him that she was leaving on Forging Day. So I think this is why he never really accepts her as dead. And of course, he's worried about her, but he still has this hope that she's coming home because he did have that little bit of warning that she was planning something. And he just had to trust that this mysterious wife of his was on a trip of her own making and not in some very dangerous trouble. Now, I will say that just because Arley says that only 3 people knew of her plan does not mean that that's actually true. Now, she told 3 people, but as we later find out, of course, Henry found out, which probably means other people in the Guardians found out. And of course, right before the mission, certainly many of them would have found out that Arley was going to be there. So that's Arley's perspective on who knows, but that doesn't necessarily mean that some loose lips might not have revealed her plans to others.
There's just so much mystery between the present and the past in this epilogue when we read it for the first time. I remember what really stood out with a question mark was Arley's commentary about being here last time, how the days got away from her and she lost sense of time, and how she had a newborn with her when the soldiers picked her up last time. Based off her and Andre's love story that he shared, we can gather that wherever she is, it's apparently the same place that she had her year-long mission 2 decades ago. But wow, it creates such an air of mystery. And with the few answers it provides about Arley these past 6 months, this epilogue raises even more questions. I love it. It's like, yeah, we get answers. Oh wait, now we have a million more questions. I remember on my first read, being on the Sacred Island really didn't cross my mind because it was barely mentioned in Spark, which in retrospect makes sense because Spark is viewed from a mortal POV and Kirill is the descendants and a symbol of the kindred. I initially thought Arley was in a realm where mortals were banned, or even somewhere off the map where it seems no one travels to. Now on a reread, it seems so obvious, but it's also so easy to remember what the initial reactions and questions were, you know? The part, however, that really tripped me up was the fact that there seems to have been someone else here.
Boy, oh boy, is there. One of the things I love about the series is that we don't meet the big bad until book 3, but he is all over the page at the end of book 1. I got chills. It's just so good. As part of Arley's regular routine, which she only does at night so the patrol boats don't see her, she approaches a glittering black stone door, which that just makes this even more terrifying that this is at night. A door we now know is made of godstone. This is the first place that Arley went to when she first arrived back on the island, and she's continued to visit it once a week just to calm that anxiety down.
Can we just take a moment to consider the psychological hurdles Arley's gone through these past 6.5 months on this island? I watch Alone. It's one of my favorite TV shows. This kind of isolation and survival is hard. Yes, physically, but more so mentally. Add on the horrors of your past and your abusive ex's old presence haunting you here. We can all say what we want about Arley, but this is intense.
Well, not to mention the fact that she stabbed him here.
Yes!
And there's that rolling through her head, and I would be like, his ghost is coming to get me. When Arley first made it to the island 20 years ago, she stumbled upon this same black door, but it appeared to not have been opened in generations. But nevertheless, she called out and a voice answered her. Ugh. The same moment from 20 years ago haunts Arley now as she calls out his, Ophiakai's, name and nothing responds. And of course no one responds. He was dead, right? She killed him herself by stabbing him with a godstone blade in the heart. The same place Diem will get stabbed at the end of Heat of the Everflame. But still, to keep her anxieties at bay, she continues down the steps, never going farther than 15, but tonight she only makes it to 12.
It's like she knows he was different, and her gut is telling her that maybe, just maybe, he somehow survived. I'm telling you, the psychological shit she's gone through on this island is crazy.
So she strikes one of her precious few matches to illuminate her path and throws it to the ground. And, quote, it hit the floor and took an unlucky bounce backward, not far enough to fill the shadows in the room.
The scariest thing about all of this is that he actually is there this whole time. He must be lurking in the shadows, purposefully not answering her. I have goosebumps and not the good kind.
This is a fucking horror movie. Arley is calling out to him, saying that she came back for him, and he's there, but remaining silent. I would love to know what Ophiakai is thinking right now.
That's a good question for Penn.
You know what? It is a good question. And we asked it. Let's hear what she has to say because I won't be able to sleep at night until we know.
Does Ophiakai know that Arley is on the island for 6 months? Well, first of all, Ophiakai has been in the cell for 20 years. And in that time, he's had no sunlight, no human interaction. The only water he's got is the rainwater that seeps through the soil. The only food he has are whatever little bugs and creatures climb into the cell. So he's barely barely alive at this point. He's probably delusional from the isolation, super weak. I mean, we're talking clinging to life by a thread. So Arley keeps her distance from the cell until, that one moment, 30 days before she leaves. So for 5 months, she is keeping a very wide berth away from that cell because she has way too many memories and traumas attached to it. When she goes to the cell, she's only there for a minute. She barely says anything. And then she runs away and doesn't go near it again. If he heard her in that moment that she goes there, number one, he's probably too delusional to recognize the voice, or might even think it's just a voice in his head. And two, he doesn't want anything to do with her. I'm sure he's terrified that she has come back to finish the job that she started. So I think he probably isn't even sure himself if the voice he heard was her or just his own hallucinations. And if he did know that it was her, he doesn't want anything to do with her at that point.
Okay, that actually helped ease my thoughts a little bit, that he is way too far gone to even really know what's going on. So thank you for not letting that seep into our nightmares, Penn. Appreciate that.
Because, I was thinking he was in the corner, kind of cocking an eyebrow, doing a little evil villain this and all of this, But of course it's Penn, and of course there's more three-dimensional than him. Of course,
guy. It's by the way, he's almost dead. He is barely alive. And it's oh yeah. Well, so now reminder for everybody that Ofai does not break free from his chains until Diem's blood falls on the Heartstone. That's not for another month. After he breaks free and apparently gets a little bit better, he will lead the violent guardians and lay siege to cities across the realms. But it's crazy to realize none of that has happened yet. Ofai is still imprisoned for Arley's entire stay.
Okay, this makes me think that the way Vance met Ofai was actually meeting him on the island, and Vance is one of the people who helped bring him not back to life, but helped nurture him so he could lead their new side of the rebellion.
I hadn't thought about that because you're right, Vance is on the island. Now that would mean he would have to go into the temple. Actually, I could see him wanting to do that because it is made of Godstone. So maybe he's maybe there's more Godstone down here.
Yeah.
And he comes across Ofai, and then, oh my God.
Yeah. That's going to be a phone a pen for that Arley epilogue, I guarantee
Oh my
you.
gosh, yes, exactly. I do wonder if Ofai knows that his daughter is next in line for any of the realm's crowns. Because when they meet in Heat, he pulls the crowns out of her, and there are some eerie prophecy lines floating around that he could easily know about. So maybe he is just trying to stay alive and biding his time until his daughter becomes a crown and her blood will fall on the Heartstone, and that's when he can break free.
But just like I do anytime I turn off the lights in a basement, Arley runs up the stairs and out to the island. But this time, her feet take her to the glittering Black Temple, a place she hasn't really gone on her 6 months on the Isle. But then the ground trembles, bringing her attention to the black tile floor, the moonlight, revealing a symbol of a 10-pointed star. Dun, dun, dun. We will come to learn this as Ofai's symbol. But I wonder, because it's not under the Forgotten Kindred's archway. Instead, it's on the floor of the temple itself. So I wonder if the 10-pointed star is actually the symbol of all of Amarian when there were 10 kindred.
I wonder that too.
Yes. Okay. And then when Ofai was locked up, the symbol died out. But then he made it his symbol so that it could be the rallying of bringing back the 10 kindreds, or, his power over them.
Because what if he believed in all of their combined powers? After all, it was his siblings who wanted to cast the forging spell so they could tie their lives to their mortal lovers and set up the realms and rulership for generations to come. Omnos did not have a mortal lover. And from what we gather in Montios' personal diary, I think he was against a forging spell. He wanted his immortality. But what if that also included wilder magic and power over all of Amarian? The 10-pointed star would fit perfectly into the belief of upholding that.
Yes. Everything about being in this temple feels wrong to Arley. And I wonder if it's because this island used to be the home of the Everflame, right where the temple is now erected. But the island was given to the kindred, and the Everflame was then cut down and replaced with this temple. If Arley is somehow connected to the Everflame, which I keep needing to remind myself there is an if next to that, it would make sense about how standing in the physical manifestation of the kindred's intrusion on the Everflame would make her feel a little on edge.
I love how her inner defiance pushes her to continue toward the center, as if her anger at the kindred for taking the sanctuary just fuels her. Yep, that is Diem's mom for sure.
Now, I'm assuming that the ground is rumbling because Diem just took the crown and there's about to be a beam of light shooting into this temple. But I wonder, there's a part of me that wonders instead if it's actually because Arley is stepping onto the temple floor.
Retweet. That's actually what I was thinking, since it's a few minutes before the big showdown. And tell me if I'm wrong, but there are 2 ground tremblings, right? One when she crosses over, and then when she's already in there, because then that's when she grabs onto the Heartstone. I think the second one is because of Ulthar and Diem and all of that transfer of power, and the first one is because of her presence coming here.
But that doesn't stop Arley from looking around. And with the ground rumbling again, her hands fly out to a pedestal in the center of the temple, holding a hunk of glossy smoke rock. Arley's hand brushes the rock that we now know as the Heartstone, and a searing pain shoots through her veins. Red welts begin to form on her hand and blister into an unnatural shade of gray. Gray? What? Why? The Heartstone is from the home world of the kindred. So is she having this reaction because she's mortal? Is she having this reaction because she's somehow connected to the Everflame?
I was wondering both these things too. Or maybe only the crowns can touch it and anyone else is burned. Off in the distance, Arley hears a series of inhuman, long, piercing cries. Just like we heard from Diem's POV, this is Sarai as she responds to the King of Lumnos dying.
And Luther's POV. See, I didn't forget him this time. Ha!
And just as Arley goes to look in the direction of the sound, she sees the obelisk, which is a tall rectangular monument, the sigil of Lumnos, the symbol of a moon and sun, fade into shadow. And the previously blue flaming cauldron at this tall statue's peak is now only wisps of smoke. I love being in Arley's POV here on the island, watching what happens at the epicenter of the crown's magic when there is this transition of power for the crown. The crown is so deeply rooted in each realm's magic, which is part of the bigger whole that makes up Amari. And to witness the tangible effects is a really great addition here to Spark. Although, R.I.P. King Ulthar. Immediately after the extinguish of this Lumnos crown, Arley sees a column of light beam up into the sky from within the forest. While she has absolutely no idea, Arley is witnessing her daughter Diem become the crown after she races through the forest and wades into the water near their family home outside Lumnos Mortal City. And in response to this crowning of a new Lumnos ruler, a twin beam shoots down from out of the sky onto the glassy rock beside Arley, filling it with a sapphire blue glow. I love this description so much. It's like Lumnos herself from up above answers to the passing of the crown right here on Koreal. Seeing this is the best news Arley could ask for. It means what she's been waiting for 6 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days has finally happened. King Ulthar is dead, which means the countdown to the next crown's coronation begins. She knows it will only be 30 more days now. Oh my goodness, I can practically feel Arley's relief through the pages. She's been spiraling recently as the days tick by, wondering if it ended up being only a temporary sickness that the king had and not looming death like she assumed. Yes, she knew the risk when she left for this mission, but it's still nerve-wracking to be stuck here for months longer than expected. However, now, phew! With the realization Lumnos has selected a new crown, Arley knows how the transition of power works and that in 30 days, there will be the challenging. Then after the challenging, it will be the coronation. But don't worry, we're going to go way more into the 30-day rule for the transition of crowns in today's Sofos library. In this magic field segment of the episode, let's tap into our Umbros magic and turn our full attention to important foreshadowing moments for the rest of this series, including speculations for Book 4.
While talking to Henry, he tells Diem about what the Descended do to mortals in the other realms. We talked about this a little earlier, sharing a story about how Igneos closed their borders, not wanting to have mortals flee and give up information to the Umbros Queen. The king's guards watched the mortals in the desert cook to death, and sadly we will see the results of this. When in Igneos, in the heat of the Everflame, we see their mortal city looking like it was abandoned in a hurry, and on the outskirts, hundreds of human bones cooking in the hot sun. Then he also shares about Sofos and how their mortals go there to study, but then they never return due to some reason reason, like illness or a tragic accident, which has led many of the Guardians to understand that when the mortals outlive their usefulness, they become the research. Now, we know better after he of the Everflame, having gone to Sofos, and as Teller will explain, the mortals here get paid so much that they send money back to their families. When thieves started realizing this, they started targeting anyone who had relatives who were studying in Fortos because they had more money. So people began to fake their own deaths back to their home realms/towns, only their family knowing that they were still alive so that they could send money to them. And as for the mortals who get experimented on, they volunteer to do it because they want to do something useful for science, but they get paid a fortune in the process. I'm gonna be real. I do not blame Henry and the Guardians for believing this rumor. Yes, they're spreading fake instances of death, but the others around them believe it. And it looks pretty sus that when people go to Sofos, they just die.
That's what I was going to say too. Yep, the narrative falls right in line with exactly what the Guardians think of the Descended already. So it supports their mission to save all the mortals.
Honestly, for Sofos being so wise, this seems like an oversight they should have squashed.
DM absolutely remembers this information from Henry when the Sofos representatives invite Teller to one of their research institutions. She turns them down and refuses to hear anything of it ever again. Which, yes, good for her to defend her brother, but also DM tries to protect Teller so much and can forget to treat him like the adult he is quickly growing into. Declining this Sofos invitation and then forgetting to tell Teller about it will put quite the wedge between these two siblings.
There are so many mentions of moon and silver light or silver moon. With me already being on Silverfire, Silver Light watch, it is now being tied together with my moon watch. Do you know what that means? I don't know, and I'm still cooking on it, but I'm waving my arms around saying something is here. Moon, silver moon watch.
We get another mention of the world beyond Amarian. I don't know why I'm so set on what's beyond this continent, but here I am. How does the magic work there? Or is there magic? Like, is whatever world is beyond this continent, is it like the ancient mortal societies, as if the Kindred never came, because the Kindred didn't come to these other spots in this world?
You know what that sounds like? A really good phone a pen for someday.
She'll be like, why are you worrying about what else is going on? There's too many other problems here already.
Be like, Penn, this is how we deep dive. When Arley is hunting on Kareel, she notices how she finds a warren of rabbits whose, quote, unexpected presence here she could only attribute to a gift from the old gods. I wonder, given Arley's highly probable connection to the old gods and the Everflame, does this line have more meaning to it than meets the eye? The old gods watching over her and sending these little extra gifts would be literally them saying, hey, here you go. We're going to send you a miraculous little warren of rabbits that shouldn't exist on this island.
You know, that happens occasionally on Alone, and everybody gets so excited, and then they're like, I can last forever here.
I need to watch Alone with you.
Yes, you do.
I just want to know Arley's connection, the red hair, the Everflame, and what the hell it means. Now it is time to enter the Sofos library, where each episode Lexi guides us through a world-building topic to help us deepen our understanding of this world and the magic within it.
Today's Sofos library topic is the transitioning of the crown. It feels like the perfect world-building explainer as we finish Spark and head into Glow. It's like a nice little bridge for us, right? Each of the 9 realms always has a crown. And friends, we're going to have a little bit of fun here today, and we're going to make a drinking game out of every time I say crown. This is not an actual drinking game, but like a hydration game. There we go. Nicole's got her water there. I've got my water. Let's do this. After a realm's crown dies, the crown passes on to the most powerful living descendant of that kindred's bloodline, or that was the case before DM came along, but that's a whole other discussion that we're not getting into today. Sometimes a crown grows old and dies of natural causes, or the crown is assassinated or even dies because the forging magic itself has decided it's time for the crown to change hands, even if the current crown is still young and healthy. The kindred are able to speak through the current crown's body or speak to the current crown as it gets closer to their time of passing. You all, Nicole, on video right now is, I don't have enough time to swallow before you say it again. That's what she said. Dirty. It's also never truly known who the next crown will be until the magic picks the new one. Since the Descendants magic is impossible to tangibly measure, it's really just a giant guessing game, although there can and are frontrunner predictions, like Luther for Lumnos. Once the magic picks the new crown, there is a surge of bright light and the person feels an immense pain at the top of their head, like a migraine starting, followed by excruciating heat and a heaviness where the actual crown is attempting to break free. During all of this, there is a large explosion of power in the form of a beam of light from the new crown's two hands, with this light beaming shooting up into the sky. This is followed by a twin beam of light shooting down onto the Heartstone on Kirill, like we were saying there that Arley saw. Moments before this happens, the ground on the island rumbles, and then the light beam hits the Heartstone, and the cauldron flame of that crown snuffs out, along with the realm's sigil on its obelisk going dark. Then that's when there is a beam of light and relighting of the cauldron flame in that realm's color. Along with gaining power over the realm's magic, the new crown also gets control of the realm's Grivens, which is bound to serve as a companion and guardian to the crown. The immortal beasts who originally came to this world with their kindred were bound during the foraging to an eternity of service to their crown. These Grivens are exceedingly smart, having their own minds and opinions, but they are magically bound to obey only the crown. This might mean they are forced into service to a ruler whose goals they might not share. Luckily, that is not going to be the case with Sarai and Diem, and we just can't wait for her to be more in our story and glow. They are also attuned to the magic of the crown and can sense the emergence of a new crown even before the previous one has fully passed, like we see with King Ulthar, Diem, and Sarai. In Lumnos, after the crown is chosen, if the crown is in the same house as the previous ruling house and gets through the challenging, then there's not really any major changes to the palace lifestyle beyond, fresh political maneuvering with a new ruler. But if a new house is crowned, then the current house moves out of the palace because, they're not royalty anymore after all. This most likely means all the staff and guards have to move out too, and they get fresh ones in there because houses tend to only trust their own and only employ their own members of their family who are less powerful than them. Once the new crown is selected by the magic, there is the period of challenging, which is actually a modern tradition to eliminate the inevitable power struggle. Before the Blood War, the houses would continually assassinate the new crown, hoping that they would be the next one selected. Because of the chaos this caused in the realm, the challenging was created as a way for everyone to accept the new ruler as worthy. Now the houses only get one shot. Do not take your chance to blow. I don't know if those are the right lyrics, but you know what I mean. Now the houses only get one shot at taking out the new crown, where any one Lumnos descendant can challenge the new crown if they deem them unworthy. If the challenger fails, everyone must accept the crown's reign without interference. The period of challenging lasts 30 days and officially begins with the Ascension Ball. At the Ascension Ball, each of the other crowns send 2 representatives along with a gift for the new crown. The ball is just one of many tests the new crown must go through for the challenging in an attempt to not be challenged. During the period of challenging, the new crown hosts house receptions. These are private meetings with the heads of each of the 20 houses in an attempt to persuade them not to challenge the crown. The receptions are also an opportunity for the houses to learn more about the crown and especially establish new trade alliances. On the day of the challenging, all of the houses gather at the arena, where each of the houses has an opportunity to raise a challenge. If one or more challengers steps forward, the regent selects the strongest of them to fight the crown using only their magic until one of them is dead. After one of them dies, if the crown wins, they get to be coronated during the rite of coronation. Otherwise, a new crown is selected and a period of challenging restarts. I hope your drinking game is going better than Nicole's right now. There's always the chance and the hope that no one challenges the crown. After all, the last 5 Courbois crowns weren't challenged. There's also little benefit for a house to raise a challenge. If they do and fail, they not only lose the most powerful member of their house because they just died, but they also make an enemy of the crown and the reigning house because they just tried to say, hey, we don't think you're worthy. And guess what? If they don't win, then they're kind of fucked when it comes to, political alliances and stuff. And even if their challenger succeeds, they still risk making an enemy of the ruling house, because the next crown still goes to the most powerful. Very well might not be the challenger. It could literally be someone else in the existing ruling house, and they're still pissed off at the challenger. Oh boy. And there you have it, friends. A fun teaser for the events of Glow.
Thank you very much. We need to finish this very quickly because I'm going to need to piss my pants real soon. Let us close out this episode with skipping around the apple orchard as we discuss our favorite moments from this stretch of chapters.
When Diem's in trouble with her father and she offers for him to put all the reasons he's mad at her into a hat and then he can pick one to yell at her about first. This is such a adult living under a parent's roof energy. Also, probably teenager energy. In any case, it gave me a chuckle in the midst of a very serious scene.
Yes. And we have to mention it one more time. The utter chills we get when we read the line, quote, "You're the new queen of Lumnos." Everything in our story has been building to this moment. Just brava, Penn, brava.
And I'm going to throw one more out there. Just the entire epilogue. I absolutely loved that. Oh my gosh. I thought that was just absolutely brilliant, where you had no idea what was going on when you were reading it, but in hindsight, it makes so much sense and you get all of it. And it's right there. I love it.
Well, and Penn is so good at trusting the reader to pick up on clues. Yes, with Diem, they are very heavy-hinted clues, but that's because it's for Diem. She is that far into Lululand. But when it comes to Arley, Penn really trusts the reader to not know what the hell is going on. And I love it when an author does that so much.
All right, friends. There you have it. Thank you so much for listening to the conclusion of our Spark of the Everflame deep dive. This was the shortest deep dive we've ever done of one book. I think we did 6 episodes of Fourth Wing way back in fall 2023 when we were baby podcasters. And now we've done up to 13 episodes. But yes, 5 episodes. There we have it.
There we go. Our journey through the Kindred's Curse saga is just getting started, though, because we are jumping right into Glow of the Everflame next Monday, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm so excited. With episode 1, where we are covering chapters 1 through 7. Time to meet the Corbois! I'm so excited!
Me too. We would love to give the biggest warm welcome to our newest Crowns Council members.
Thank you so much for joining Summer Rose, Noah, Leah J, Cassie, Casey, Erica, and Brittany S. Welcome.
Yay, thank you so much for being part of our Crowns Council. Thank you so much for being such positive lights in this community. We appreciate you so much. And friends, if you're like, hey, I want my name shouted on the podcast and to be showered with all the love and attention too, join our fan club at fantasyfangirls.com/fan club. Link is also in the show notes.
Thank you, as always, to our top Sofos scholar, aka content researcher Brooke, and our executive producer, aka our sanity manager, Hayden.
We are very active on social media with weekly trivia, Amarian guides, and lots more. So please be sure to follow us on Instagram and /our TikTok at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. And if you're watching this on YouTube, or you want to watch on YouTube for the Henry hat, or watching Nicole try to drink 2 gallons of water, please hit that subscribe button to keep following along.
And while you're hitting buttons, please take a second to rate and review the podcast. It takes 2 moments of your day to hit that 5-star button, write a little love note in the review section, and it is one of the most helpful things you can do, not just for this show, but for any podcasts you listen to. And last but not least, share this episode with your fellow Everflame friends. If your group chat was so confused as to what was happening in this epilogue, and then you read Heat of the Everflame and you're like, oh my God, I get it now. This is a great episode to go beat by beat through that delicious chapter.
All right, friends, we will see you next week with Glow of the Everflame. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Over these past 4 Spark episodes, and even during our intro episode's interview with Penn, it's important to keep bringing up how aligned... Nicole, stop laughing at me.
Oh my God. Right before making out with Diem, right after making out with Diem, Luther heads